The paper felt like ice against my palm, as my 8-year-old granddaughter slipped it to me beneath the dinner table. My blood turned cold reading those four scribbled words: "Grandma, call the police." My son, David, was laughing at something his wife, Claire, had just said. The sound was too loud, the smile on his face a brittle mask that didn't reach his eyes. Claire raised her wine glass for a toast that felt rehearsed, her voice a syrupy sweet lie. And I, Margaret, at 70 years old, sat frozen in my own dining room, the centerpiece of a nightmare I never saw coming. What kind of danger had just walked into my home? This terrifying moment was the climax of a scheme that began just 1 month ago, the day my son first showed me the stranger he had become. He'd arrived that afternoon with Claire, but without little Lily. Their absence was a silent alarm. Their expressions were grim, setting every one of my nerves on edge from the moment they stepped through the doorway. "Mom, we need to have a serious discussion," David had stated, his gaze avoiding mine as he settled onto the sofa. Claire remained standing, a soldier poised for battle. "It concerns this house, and your well-being." My husband, Arthur, was out fetching his morning coffee. The timing felt deliberate, a planned ambush. I sat opposite them, the air in the room growing dense and suffocating. "My well-being?" I asked, though a deep instinct already whispered I would despise their answer. "Mom, you're 70 now," David began, finally meeting my eyes. "This place is more than you and Dad can handle. The upkeep is a constant struggle." This was a fiction. Arthur and I maintained our home with pride. The garden was lush, the paint fresh, every room spotless. But I let him continue. "Claire and I have a proposal." He reached for his wife's hand. "You should sign the house over to us now, as an early inheritance, then you could relocate somewhere smaller, more suitable for people your age." The sheer audacity of his words felt like a physical blow. Arthur had labored for 40 years at the plant to pay for every single inch of this property. 40 years of me rising before dawn to pack his lunch, of scrimping and saving, of going without so David could have a good education, nice clothes, everything he ever needed. "An early inheritance," I repeated, each syllable heavy. "David, this isn't just a building. It's our home. It's where we raised you, where we celebrated every holiday." "Where, Mom, let's not be emotional about this," Claire cut in, her smile chilly. "It's brick and wood. Honestly, you're both too elderly to manage a place so large. You should be thinking of us, of Lily, of her future." There it was, their trump card, my granddaughter. As if I didn't carry Lily in my heart every moment. As if I wasn't the one who bought her school books when they were short, who sewed her recital costumes, who cared for her whenever she was ill. "We're in trouble, Mom," David confessed, his voice dropping. "Serious financial trouble. If we don't settle it soon, we could lose everything we have. And Lily. Lily shouldn't have to suffer for that." My son wasn't asking for assistance. He was commanding I hand over my life's work, and he was using my grandchild as a bargaining chip. "What kind of trouble?" I pressed, though from David's evasive look, I already harbored a dark suspicion. "That's not important," Claire said swiftly. "What matters is we can fix this if you cooperate. If you give us the house." "No," I stated, my voice firm. "This home is not for sale, and I will not gift it to you to cover debts you won't even name." Claire's face shifted. The pleasant facade dissolved like sugar in rain. "Margaret, I don't think you grasp the situation. We aren't requesting. We are telling you what is going to happen." "Excuse me." I stood, feeling fury heat my veins. "Listen, you old woman," Claire said, and the term dripped from her lips like acid. "You're declining. Arthur is, too. Soon, you'll need professional care. You'll be too addled to make sound choices. Don't you think it's simpler to do this the pleasant way now?" David said nothing. My own son remained silent while his wife insulted me in my own living room. In that moment, I knew I had lost him long ago. Claire had twisted him into a stranger who saw me as a problem. "Get out," I commanded with a voice I barely recognized. "Leave my home this instant." "Mom." David started. "Now," I shouted, my arm rigid as I pointed at the door. "And do not return until you're prepared to apologize and come clean about these debts." They left, the door slamming shut with a force that shook the pictures on the walls. Arthur returned 10 minutes later to find me weeping on the couch, a sharp ache in my chest I couldn't identify as rage or grief. I told him everything. Arthur was quiet for a long time, processing our child's treachery. Finally, he took my hand and said, "Maggie, my love, I have a feeling this isn't the end." He was right. Because 1 month later, David and Claire were back at my door with Lily and counterfeit cheer, acting as if nothing had occurred. As if they hadn't threatened me. As if they hadn't attempted to rob me. And now, with that secret note crumpled in my hand, I knew Arthur had been correct. It wasn't over. It was only beginning. "Everything all right, Mom?" David asked from across the table, his tone oddly strained. I swiftly folded Lily's message and tucked it into my dress pocket, fighting to keep my face neutral. My granddaughter watched me with wide, fearful eyes. But when David glanced at her, Lily instantly looked down at her plate. "Of course, dear," I answered, forcing a smile. "I was just thinking how wonderful this meal Claire prepared is." Claire smiled, but it was a measured, calculated expression that unnerved me. "Thank you, Margaret. I wanted this lunch to feel special, like it used to be." Like it used to be. Did she mean before she threatened me in my own home, before she tried to seize my house? But I stayed calm. Something was horribly wrong here. And Lily's note was the confirmation. Arthur ate his food slowly, unaware of the tension thickening the air. My husband had always been a gentle, trusting soul. Perhaps too trusting. He didn't see David's anxious looks, the way Claire controlled every movement, or how Lily had barely eaten a thing. "Lily, sweetheart, aren't you hungry?" I asked, hoping my voice sounded normal. "Not really, Grandma," my granddaughter mumbled, not lifting her head. "She's fine," Claire interjected quickly. "Children have small appetites sometimes, right, Lily?" The girl nodded, but I saw her small hands shaking slightly. My pulse quickened. What had they done to my granddaughter? What did she know that I didn't? For the next several minutes, I pretended everything was fine while observing every detail. David got up 3 times to go to the kitchen for things we didn't need. More water, extra napkins, salt that was already on the table. Each time he returned, he exchanged a loaded glance with Claire. "You know, Mom," David said, sitting back down after his 4th unnecessary trip. "Claire and I have been reflecting on our last conversation." Here it was. Whatever they had planned, it was already in motion. "Oh?" I replied, taking a sip of water. The liquid had a faint, unpleasant bitterness, but I blamed my frayed nerves. "Yes," Claire continued, taking David's hand in a staged gesture. "We realized we may have been too blunt, too harsh with you. We want to say we're sorry," David added. And for a heartbeat, I almost believed he was sincere. Almost. "We know this home means the world to you," Claire went on. "And we don't want to force you into a rushed decision." Liar. Lily's note was a fire in my pocket, proof of a looming disaster, but I played my part. "I'm glad you see that," I said carefully. "That's why," David continued, "we thought you could come for lunch more often, spend more time with us as a family." "Yes," Claire added with feigned excitement. "We could do this every Sunday." Lily would be overjoyed. "Right, honey." Lily gave a weak nod, but when her parents weren't watching, she shot me a look of pure desperation that shattered my heart. I took another sip of water, and this time the bitter aftertaste was unmistakable. Something was wrong with my drink. Terribly wrong. I set the glass down and pretended to eat, but my mind was racing. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" David asked, and his tone held not genuine care, but anticipation. "A bit weary," I admitted, and it wasn't a lie. I suddenly felt strangely heavy, as if my thoughts were moving through thick mud. "Perhaps you should rest for a while," Claire suggested immediately. "After we eat, of course." "Yes," David agreed. "You've been overdoing it in the yard lately. Maybe it's too much for a woman your age." I finished the sentence for him, and something in my voice put them on alert. "I didn't mean it like that," David backtracked, but I already understood. The bitter water, the insistence on these lunches, the nervous energy, Lily's terrified note. They were poisoning me. In my own home, in front of Arthur, in front of my granddaughter, they were slowly dosing me with something. "Please excuse me," I said, standing up carefully. "I need to use the restroom." In the bathroom, I pulled out Lily's note and read it again. "Call the police now." But what would I tell them? That my son and daughter-in-law were drugging me. Did I have any proof? Would they believe me? I looked in the mirror. My eyes seemed odd, my pupils wider than usual. There was definitely something in that water. But I had to be clever. If I accused them now without evidence, they would simply deny it. And if they were truly drugging me, what was their ultimate goal? I returned to the table, trying to walk normally despite my unsteady legs. You okay, Grandma? Lily asked, and in her gaze I saw a terror that confirmed the severity of our situation. Perfectly, my darling, I replied, giving her a subtle, reassuring wink. I prayed she understood her message was received. Arthur was still eating, completely in the dark. He was drinking from his own glass without issue, meaning they were only tampering with mine. David and Claire shared another look when they thought I wasn't watching. Mom, David said suddenly, you've been seeming forgetful recently. The accusation struck me like a hammer. I have. Well, Claire interjected, the other day on the phone, you sounded a bit muddled, like you didn't recall our previous talk. A lie. I remembered every poisonous word. And Arthur mentioned you sometimes wake at night, and don't know why, David added. Another lie. Arthur had never said that because it never happened. I don't remember saying that, Arthur muttered, confused. Oh, but it's common, Claire said quickly. Often, seniors don't notice these slight changes in themselves. It's a gradual process. They were constructing a narrative. They were painting me as a confused, senile old woman who required supervision, and they had likely been plotting this for weeks. Maybe you should see a doctor, David suggested with fake concern. Just to be sure everything's all right. A geriatric specialist, Claire added. We know an excellent one, very compassionate in these delicate matters. A doctor who was undoubtedly corrupt, willing to diagnose dementia based on their manufactured testimony. The plan was becoming terrifyingly clear. Mom, are you even listening? David asked, and I realized I had been silent for too long. Yes, son, I replied, letting my voice sound slightly distant. Sorry, my mind wandered. What were you saying about a physician? Claire smiled victoriously. David visibly relaxed. They thought their scheme was working. But I now saw the whole picture. They were drugging me to make me appear mentally incompetent. They would document my confused behavior during these family meals. They would secure witnesses to corroborate my cognitive decline. And then, with the help of their bribed geriatrician, they would have me declared legally incapable. The house would be theirs and I would end up in a facility, medicated and silenced, while they enjoyed the rewards of 40 years of our labor. But they had one flaw in their plan. Lily, my courageous granddaughter, had uncovered their plot and risked everything to alert me. Now I had to be smarter than them. The remainder of the lunch was an Oscar-worthy performance. I pretended to grow more disoriented, dropped my fork twice, and repeated a question I'd already asked. David and Claire exchanged smug looks every time I acted lost. Arthur, my poor Arthur, began to genuinely worry. Maggie, are you sure you're feeling well? He asked, touching my forehead. You look a little pale. I'm fine, dear, I replied, but I let my voice quaver slightly. Just a bit tired. See, Dad, David said, using that patronizing tone he'd perfected. This is exactly why we're concerned. Mom hasn't been herself. Claire nodded with a mask of feigned worry. Arthur, I've noticed it too. On our recent visits, Margaret has seemed distracted, as if she can't recall conversations we just had. My husband looked at me with eyes full of real love and anxiety. I hated deceiving him, hated making him think I was unwell, but I needed time to fully unravel David and Claire's scheme. Maybe we should call Dr. Evans, Arthur suggested. He's been our doctor for 25 years. No, Claire interjected swiftly. Dr. Evans is a general practitioner. For these specific issues, you need a specialist. We know a Dr. Robert Hillman, David added. He's the top geriatric specialist in the city. Very understanding, very professional. There he was, their purchase physician, the man who had likely agreed to a false diagnosis for a price. We could schedule an appointment for next week, Claire continued. Just for him to evaluate Margaret so we can all be certain. Lily had stayed quiet during this exchange, but I could feel her tension across the table. When her parents were distracted talking to Arthur about symptoms and doctors, my granddaughter looked right at me and mouthed a single, silent word. Careful. My heart swelled with both pride and fear. This brave 8-year-old was risking everything to protect me, and I had to be worthy of her courage. I think that's a good idea, I finally said, surprising everyone. If you all believe I need to see a doctor, I trust your judgment. The triumphant smirk that flashed across Claire's face was bone-chilling. David relaxed completely, clearly convinced their plan was unfolding perfectly. Great, Mom, David said, taking my hand with a false tenderness that turned my stomach. We'll make the appointment first thing tomorrow. After lunch, they insisted I rest while they cleaned up. Arthur went to his study to read, and I pretended to go to my room, but I lingered in the hallway, listening. Do you think she suspects anything? Claire whispered. Not a chance, David answered in a low voice. You saw her at lunch, confused, disoriented. It's working perfectly. And Arthur? Arthur is a minor obstacle. He's so devoted to Mom, he'll agree to anything he believes is best for her. Once Dr. Hillman confirms the diagnosis, Arthur will sign whatever documents we put in front of him. You're certain Hillman will play along? For $40,000 and the promise of being our family physician, when we control Mom's assets, Hillman will sign anything. My blood ran cold. They weren't just drugging and manipulating me, they had bribed a doctor to falsify a medical diagnosis. This was far more serious than I'd imagined. And Lily? Claire asked. She was very quiet today. She's a child, David replied dismissively. She doesn't comprehend what's going on. And even if she did, who would believe her? I wanted to storm out and scream that my granddaughter understood perfectly, that she was smarter and braver than both of them combined. But I held my position. I needed more information. How long until it's done? Claire asked. A month, maybe 2. First the diagnosis, then an observation period where we document her decline, and finally the legal declaration of incompetence. Once we have guardianship, we sell the house and clear the debts. And if Arthur resists? Arthur is old and tired. Once he's convinced Mom needs constant care, it will be easy to persuade him a facility is best for her, especially when the aggressive episodes start. Aggressive episodes? Claire's voice was curious. A stronger dose of the sedative will make her act erratically, aggressive, a danger to herself and others. Arthur will be so frightened he'll beg us to put her in a home. I had to bite my tongue to keep from crying out. They planned to drug me until I was a hollow shell, then use my altered state as an excuse to lock me away. All to get my house and pay off debts they'd probably accumulated from gambling or poor investments. It's a flawless plan, Claire murmured. And afterwards, we'll have the house, the debts will be gone, and we can start fresh. Lily will have a better life, free from the whims of a senile old woman. A senile old woman. That's all I was to them. After every sacrifice I'd made for David, after all the years I'd worked to give him a good life, I was just a senile old woman in his way. I heard them move toward the living room, so I slipped silently back to my bedroom. I sat on the bed, trembling not from the drugs, but from a potent mix of fury and terror. I had to act. But how? If I confronted them now, they'd deny everything. If I called the police, what would I say? That my son was drugging me based on a bitter taste, and a note from a child. I needed proof. I needed irrefutable evidence of their crimes, and I needed to protect Lily, who had already risked too much to save me. I heard footsteps in the hall. Someone was approaching my room. I quickly lay down and closed my eyes, feigning sleep. She's asleep, Claire whispered. Looks like it, David replied. The sedative is working perfectly. In an hour, she won't remember half of today. Did you bring the camera? My heart stuttered. Camera. Right here, David whispered. You record while I ask questions. We need to document her confusion to show Dr. Hillman. I cracked one eye open just enough to see. David held his phone, clearly recording. Claire stood beside him, watching. Mom, David said loudly, feigning surprise. You're awake. I opened my eyes slowly, as if rousing from a deep slumber. David, what time is it? It's 4 in the afternoon, Mom. We just had lunch. You don't remember? I pretended to be confused, squinting as if struggling to recall. We had lunch. David exchanged a satisfied look with Claire. The camera was still rolling. An hour ago, Mom. Claire made pot roast. Lily was here. You don't remember any of that? Lily? I repeated slowly. My granddaughter was here. Yes, Mom. She ate with us. We talked about taking you to the doctor. Do you remember that conversation? I shook my head, pretending to be utterly lost. No, I don't remember. Why would I need a doctor? Because you've been forgetting things, Mom. Like right now. You've been very confused lately. I let my eyes well with real tears because even though I was acting, the betrayal was genuine. The pain was real. I don't understand, I whispered. What's happening to me? Don't worry, Mom, David said. His voice sounded so tender I almost forgot it was a cruel performance. We're going to take care of you. The doctor will help us figure this out. Claire nodded solemnly from behind the camera. They were creating the perfect evidence of my supposed mental decline. Get some more rest, David suggested. Maybe you'll feel clearer when you wake up. They left the room, closing the door softly. I heard them whispering in the hall about how well the recording went, about how Dr. Hillman would be impressed. I lay there, my heart pounding so hard, I was sure it was audible throughout the house. I had the evidence I needed, but now I had to be more cunning than ever. I knew one misstep would land me exactly where they wanted me, drugged, silenced, and locked away while they enjoyed everything Arthur and I had spent our lives building. That night, after David and Claire left with Lily, I waited until Arthur was asleep to execute my plan. My husband snored softly beside me, completely unaware of the danger we were in. I rose carefully, sliding from the bed like a ghost. The first thing I did was check the glass I'd been drinking from at lunch. I had discreetly saved it in a kitchen cabinet while pretending to help clean. Under the moonlight filtering through the window, I examined the bottom. There was a nearly invisible white residue, a fine powder that hadn't fully dissolved. I took a small plastic bag and carefully scraped the residue into it. It was a tiny amount, but perhaps enough for a lab to identify what they'd given me. I hid the bag in the very back of my jewelry box, behind the sapphire necklace my mother had left me. Then I went to my small home office and retrieved my old cell phone, the one Arthur always said I should replace. I never thought I'd be thankful for holding on to such a simple device. I searched online for information on Dr. Robert Hillman. What I found chilled me to the core. Dr. Hillman had been disciplined twice by the medical board in the last 6 years, once for improper billing practices, and another for overprescribing controlled substances. He was exactly the kind of corrupt Dr. David and Claire needed. But I found something even more telling, a news article from 18 months ago about a lawsuit where a family claimed Hillman had falsely diagnosed their elderly mother with dementia to facilitate a son gaining control of her estate. The case was settled out of court, but the details were hauntingly familiar. It was precisely what they were trying to do to me. I took screenshots of everything and saved them in a secure folder. Then I researched secret recordings and legal evidence. I discovered that in our state, it was legal for a person to record conversations they were part of without the other party's consent. That meant if I could record David and Claire admitting their plan, it would be admissible in court. I also searched for private laboratories that would analyze substances without a doctor's order. I found one, the City Toxicology Center, that offered confidential analysis with results in 48 hours. My next step was riskier. I needed access to David's phone to get the recording they'd made of me that afternoon. I remembered he always left it charging in the kitchen when he visited, plugged into the charger we kept for him, but that would have to wait until their next visit. For now, I had to focus on documentation. I wrote a detailed letter explaining the entire situation, the first argument about the house, the threats, today's lunch, the drugging, the conversation I'd overheard, and their recording of my feigned confusion. I dated the letter, signed it, and placed it in our fireproof safe with our other important documents. I also wrote a second letter to my lawyer, Eleanor Vance, explaining everything and asking her to review my will and power of attorney documents. If something happened to me, I needed to ensure Arthur was protected, and that David couldn't manipulate him. As I wrote, my mind raced, planning the next moves. I had to be incredibly careful. If David and Claire suspected I was onto them, they might accelerate their plan or even become violent. Lily had already taken a monumental risk. I couldn't expose her further. At 3 a.m, I finally returned to bed. Arthur stirred slightly when I lay down but didn't wake. I watched him sleep, feeling a surge of love and guilt. My poor husband had no idea our son had chosen to betray us in the cruelest way imaginable. On Monday morning, David called early, just as he'd promised. "Mom, I got the appointment with Dr. Hillman for Wednesday at 2. Does that work for you?" "Of course, son," I replied, keeping my voice even. "If you think it's necessary." "It is necessary, Mom. After what happened yesterday, Arthur and I are very worried about you." Liar, Arthur was worried. David was calculating the profit from my house. "Is Arthur coming with me?" I asked. "Naturally, Mom. We want him to feel comfortable with the doctor, too. After all, if you need specialized care, Arthur will be involved in the decisions." Specialized care. Such a polite term for a nursing home. "I understand, son. I'll see you on Wednesday then." "Mom, are you feeling all right today?" No more episodes of confusion. Episodes of confusion. They already had the medical jargon ready. "I feel fine, David. A little tired but fine." "Perfect. Get plenty of rest. And Mom, please don't go out alone, okay? Just as a precaution." "Just in case of what?" "Just in case I got disoriented or lost." He was isolating me, restricting my movements, building the case for a woman who could no longer care for herself. After hanging up, I told Arthur I had some errands to run downtown. My husband, troubled by the previous day's events, insisted on coming. "Arthur, honey, I need to go alone. It's personal." "What kind of personal?" "A woman's appointment," I lied smoothly. "Just a routine checkup." Arthur blushed slightly and nodded. 45 years of marriage and he still got flustered by female medical issues. My first stop was the City Toxicology Center. The receptionist, a young man with a kind face, greeted me professionally. "Good morning, ma'am. How can we help you?" I took out the small bag with the residue. "I need this analyzed. I believe someone put something in my drink." The receptionist didn't bat an eye, he'd probably seen similar situations before. "Do you have any idea what kind of substance it might be?" "Something that causes confusion, drowsiness, memory loss." "A sedative, perhaps." "Understood. The full analysis is $180, with results in 48 hours. Will you require an official report for legal purposes?" "Yes, please." I filled out the forms using my legal name, paid in cash, and kept the receipt. In 2 days, I would have scientific proof they were drugging me. My second stop was Eleanor Vance's law office. My lawyer had known me for 15 years. She'd handled our wills and a small property dispute years ago. "Margaret, what a surprise. How are you and Arthur?" "Eleanor, I need your help with something very serious." I told her the entire story. Eleanor listened without interruption, her expression growing graver with each detail. "Margaret, this is profoundly serious. What you're describing constitutes multiple criminal offenses. Attempted poisoning, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse. What can I do to protect myself?" "First, we'll review your will and power of attorney. I'll ensure only Arthur can make medical decisions for you, and only in the event of genuine, documented incapacity verified by independent doctors. With the evidence you're gathering, if they try to have you declared incompetent, it will be impossible. But we need more. Do you have a way to record their confessions?" "I'm working on it." Eleanor gave me a small digital recorder the size of a tube of lip balm. "This records for up to 10 hours. The quality is excellent, and it's completely legal to use in conversations you participate in." She also gave me a business card for a private investigator. "If you need additional help gathering evidence, Marcus Thorne is the best." Very discreet, very professional. I left the office feeling more prepared but also more anxious. Wednesday was the appointment with Dr. Hillman, and I knew it would be the most perilous moment. I had to act confused enough to not raise suspicion, but not so much that the false diagnosis seemed justified. That evening, Arthur and I ate dinner in relative silence. My husband watched me with concern, clearly disturbed by David's comments about my confusion. "Maggie," he finally said. "Did you really not remember lunch on Sunday?" My heart ached. Arthur was beginning to doubt my sanity based on our son's lies. "Arthur, my love," I said, taking his hand. "In 45 years of marriage, have I ever lied to you?" Never. Then trust me when I tell you that something is very wrong here. Something David and Claire aren't telling us. Arthur looked into my eyes for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. I trust you, Maggie. I've always trusted you. It was all I needed to hear. Whatever happened on Wednesday, Arthur would be on my side. Wednesday arrived like a gathering storm. David and Claire showed up at my door at 1:30 with counterfeit smiles and formal attire chosen to make a respectable impression on their corrupt doctor. Ready, Mom? David asked, offering me his arm, as if I were a frail elder who needed assistance walking. Ready, I replied, making sure the recorder Eleanor had given me was hidden in the inner pocket of my handbag. Arthur accompanied us in silence, but I could feel his tension. My husband was an intuitive man. Something told him this appointment wasn't what it seemed. Dr. Hillman's office was in a modern medical building downtown. The waiting room was opulent, with dark wood and plush chairs, all designed to convey success and trustworthiness. Mrs. Margaret Herrera, David announced to the receptionist, an efficient-looking woman with a stern demeanor. Of course. Dr. Hillman is expecting you. We were shown into a spacious office with diplomas covering one wall. Dr. Hillman was a man in his late 50s with meticulously styled silver hair, and a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Exactly what I expected from a doctor willing to falsify diagnoses for money. Mrs. Herrera, a pleasure, he said, shaking my hand with a grip that lingered too long. Your son has shared his concerns with me. Dr. David interjected immediately, as I explained on the phone, Mom has been experiencing periods of confusion, memory lapses, temporary disorientation. I understand. Hillman nodded, making notes on a chart. How frequently do these episodes occur? More and more often, Claire lied. Last Sunday, she didn't recall having lunch with us just an hour afterward. Arthur shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Doctor, I live with Margaret every day, and I haven't noticed. That's quite common, Hillman interrupted smoothly. Family members who see the patient daily often miss the gradual changes. It's the relatives who visit intermittently who detect the decline. How convenient. A perfect excuse to dismiss Arthur's testimony. Do you have any documentation of these episodes? Hillman asked, turning to David. As a matter of fact, I do, David replied, pulling out his phone. On Sunday, I recorded a moment when Mom seemed completely lost. My heart hammered. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. David played the video they'd recorded of me pretending to be confused after lunch. On the screen, I saw myself appearing disoriented, asking where I was and if Lily had visited. The performance looked convincing, too convincing. As you can see, David explained, she had no memory of the lunch we'd shared just an hour before. Very concerning, Hillman murmured, taking more notes. Mrs. Herrera, do you recall this video being made? It was a trap. If I said yes, I'd contradict the video evidence. If I said no, I'd confirm his diagnosis of memory loss. Not clearly, I answered carefully. I remember feeling very tired that afternoon. And do you remember the lunch your son is referring to? Vaguely. It's like a fog. Hillman nodded with satisfaction. We'll conduct some simple cognitive tests. For the next 20 minutes, Hillman asked me questions designed to assess my memory and orientation. I answered most correctly but feigned confusion on specific dates and names a person with early dementia might forget. What day is it today? Wednesday. What's the date? I hesitated. March 12th. March 15th, he corrected gently. What year is it? 2024, do you recall what you ate for breakfast this morning? I pretended to think hard. Coffee, I think. And maybe toast. I'm not certain. Arthur looked at me with genuine alarm. I hated deceiving him, but I needed this charade to be believable. After the tests, Hillman asked to speak with David and Claire alone. Arthur and I waited in an adjoining room. Maggie, Arthur whispered, taking my hand, you had oatmeal with blueberries. You love blueberries. Arthur, trust me, I whispered back. Everything will be all right. Through the slightly ajar door, I caught fragments of the conversation. Symptoms consistent with early-stage dementia, progressive cognitive decline, recommend evaluation to determine capacity, specialized care may be necessary. After 10 minutes, they called us back in. Hillman wore a solemn expression that looked rehearsed. Mrs. Herrera, based on my observations and the testing we've done, I have concerns regarding your cognitive function. What kind of concerns? Arthur asked. The symptoms your wife is presenting align with the initial phases of senile dementia. The memory lapses, the temporal disorientation, the difficulty recalling recent events. Are you certain? Arthur looked devastated. We would require further testing to confirm the diagnosis, Hillman continued, but I strongly advise you begin considering options for specialized care. Like what? David asked, feigning surprise. There are excellent geriatric care facilities that specialize in dementia patients, places where she can receive the constant medical attention she will require. Doctor, I interjected, aren't there treatments, medications that can help? Medications have limited efficacy at this stage. The priority is ensuring her safety, and your husband's. Advanced stages. According to this fraud, I had advanced dementia based on a 30-minute consultation and a fabricated video. How quickly does it typically progress? Claire asked with false concern. In cases like this, the decline can be quite rapid, weeks or months. It's crucial to act soon. I see, David said. Could you recommend any specific facilities? I work closely with several. I can provide referrals. And legally, Claire asked, would we need any documentation to protect her interests? There it was, the question they'd come to ask. In cases of confirmed dementia, it's advisable to establish a power of attorney so responsible family members can manage her financial and medical affairs, Hillman replied. Could you provide the necessary medical documentation? David pressed. Of course. I can prepare a detailed report on Mrs. Herrera's mental state. It was exactly what they'd come for, a false diagnosis that would let them seize control of my assets and institutionalize me. Doctor, Arthur said finally, I'd like a second opinion. Hillman tensed slightly. Of course, that is your right. Though I must caution you that every day without proper treatment is a day lost. Which doctor would you recommend we consult? Arthur asked. Hillman named 2 doctors who were probably also on his payroll, or at least willing to confirm his diagnosis without asking difficult questions. We left the office with an appointment for the following week, and a list of specialized care centers Hillman had personally recommended. In the elevator, David and Claire exchanged triumphant glances. They believed everything was proceeding according to plan. But I had something they didn't know. In my purse, the recorder had captured the entire consultation, including the specific questions about legal documentation and the clearly transactional nature of the conversation. I had the corrupt doctor on tape. Now I just needed the lab results to complete my evidence. Justice was drawing nearer. That same afternoon, while Arthur napped trying to process the devastating news of the supposed diagnosis, I received a call that changed everything. Mrs. Herrera, this is the City Toxicology Center. We have your results. My heart leapt. What did you find? The substance you provided contains lorazepam in significant concentrations. It's an anti-anxiety medication that, in the doses detected, can cause confusion, temporary memory loss, and drowsiness. Lorazepam. They were drugging me with a psychiatric medication that perfectly explained all the symptoms they'd been documenting. Is it dangerous? In the concentrations we detected, it's not lethal, but it would definitely alter your cognition and behavior. Do you need us to prepare an official report? Yes, please. As detailed as possible. It will be ready tomorrow morning. You can pick it up after 10. I hung up with trembling hands, this time from excitement, not fear. I had scientific proof of systematic poisoning. On Thursday morning, David called early again. Mom, how are you feeling after yesterday's appointment? Confused, I admitted, and it wasn't entirely a lie. The doctor said some very worrying things. I know, Mom. It's difficult to accept, but Claire and I have been researching the facilities Dr. Hillman recommended. There's a particularly good one not far from our house. Of course, a place where they could visit frequently to ensure I remained drugged and silent. Could you come for lunch again on Sunday? David continued. We want to discuss the options with you and Dad. Lily will be there. Yes, of course. Great. You know how much she loves seeing you. My poor granddaughter. She'd have to witness another session of her grandmother being poisoned, but this time, I would be ready. Okay, son. We'll see you Sunday. After hanging up, I went straight to the lab to pick up the official report. The technician handed me a sealed envelope with the full analysis. "Mrs. Herrera," she said quietly, "it's not my place, but if someone is drugging you without your knowledge, you should contact the authorities." "I'm already working on that," I assured her. My next stop was Eleanor Vance's office. My lawyer read the lab report with a grim expression. "Margaret, this is concrete evidence of attempted poisoning. Combined with the recording from the doctor's office, you have a powerful case. What do I do now?" "We need more evidence of the conspiracy. If you can record David and Claire admitting they are drugging you, we'd have everything needed for criminal charges. They're coming again on Sunday. They'll probably try to drug me again." Eleanor leaned forward. "Margaret, what I'm about to suggest is risky, but it could give us the definitive proof we need." She explained her plan. It was dangerous, but it was the only way to catch David and Claire in the act. Sunday arrived, gray and damp. David, Claire and Lily appeared at noon sharp with the same routine, but this time I had 3 recorders hidden, one in my purse, one taped beneath the dining table, and a third in the kitchen. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" David asked while Claire went straight to the kitchen to prepare the meal. "Better," I replied. "Clearer." I saw David exchange a worried glance with Claire. A day of mental clarity was not part of their plan. Lily came up to me and whispered, "Grandma, are you okay?" "Yes, my love," I whispered back. "Everything will be okay." During lunch, I watched every move. Claire served the water from a specific pitcher, filling only my glass from it. The rest drank from a different pitcher. "Mom," David said as we ate, "Claire and I have been thinking about what Dr. Hillman said." "Yes," Claire added, "we believe it would be best if you started seriously considering moving to a place where you can receive proper care." I took a sip of the water, immediately tasting the familiar bitterness. "You mean a nursing home?" "Don't call it that, Mom," David said. "They're specialized care centers. Lovely places where you can socialize with people your own age and get professional medical attention." "And Arthur," Claire said, "Arthur can visit whenever he wants, and so can we. Lily would see you more often." Lie after lie, all delivered with sweet smiles and concerned voices. "When would I have to move?" I asked, pretending to consider it. "Soon," Claire replied. "Dr. Hillman says your condition could deteriorate quickly." "And what would happen to the house?" There it was, the question they'd been waiting for. "Well," David said, feigning discomfort, "we'd have to sell the house to pay for the facility. It's very expensive." "Sell the house?" Arthur looked alarmed. "David, this house is our home. Dad, be realistic. Mom is going to need care for the rest of her life. The good places cost $15,000 to $20,000 a month." Inflated numbers, no doubt, but they sounded convincing to someone who hadn't researched it. "Besides," Claire added, "the house is too big for you alone, Arthur. You could move into a small apartment, and there would still be money left for Margaret's care. All calculated, all planned. They would separate me and Arthur, sell our house, and keep most of the money after paying for a few months at the cheapest facility they could find." "I don't know," Arthur murmured. "This is all very sudden." "Dad," David said impatiently, "we can't wait. What if Mom has a more severe episode? What if she gets hurt? What if she wanders off?" Lily had remained quiet, but I saw her eyes filling with tears. This brave girl knew exactly what her parents were doing. "Maybe we should talk to a lawyer," Arthur suggested. "A lawyer?" David tensed. "Why would we need a lawyer?" "To make sure we're protecting your mother's interests, to ensure everything is done properly." "Dad, we're just trying to help," Claire said in a syrupy voice. "A lawyer would only complicate things. Besides," David added, "Mom isn't in a condition to make complex legal decisions. Dr. Hillman was very clear about that." I realized the time had come. I needed them to admit something more specific. "David," I said, letting my voice sound confused, "why can't I remember things? Why do I feel so tired after our lunches?" David and Claire exchanged a quick, revealing look. "It's your condition, Mom," David answered carefully. "But I feel fine on other days. It's only after I come here that I feel strange." Claire grew visibly nervous. "Margaret, it's normal to feel more tired after socializing. It's part of your illness." "But why only here?" I insisted. "Why doesn't it happen at home with Arthur?" Mom, you're getting confused again, David said, but his voice held a warning. It was now or never. I had to take the risk. Is there something in the food? I asked directly. Something in the water. The silence that followed was deafening. David and Claire stared at me in shock, clearly not expecting such a direct accusation. Arthur sat up straight. What are you suggesting, Maggie? Arthur, I said slowly, I think someone is drugging me. The reaction was immediate. David stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. How can you say that? We're your family. Margaret, you're delusional, Claire added, but her voice trembled. Lily looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. Arthur, I continued, the water I drank today had the same bitter taste as last week. Only my water. No one else drank from that pitcher. Arthur looked at the two pitchers on the table, noticing for the first time that they were different. David, Arthur said slowly, why are there two different pitchers of water? The trap had worked. Now I just had to wait for them to say something incriminating that the recorders would capture. The silence that followed was like the calm before a storm. I could see David and Claire rapidly processing their options, deciding whether to keep lying or shift tactics. Dad, David finally said, his voice trying for calm but trembling slightly, Mom is having another paranoid episode. Dr. Hillman warned us this might happen. Paranoid episode, I repeated, feigning confusion but holding my ground. Arthur reached for my glass, but Claire quickly stood and grabbed it. No, Arthur, she said with a forced smile. Margaret has been drinking from that. If she has a bug or something, you could catch it. What a swift liar. But her reaction was exactly what I needed. Since when are you so concerned about Arthur's health, Claire? I asked directly. The mask of kindness slipped from her face for a second, revealing the coldness beneath. I have always cared about this family, Margaret. Is that why you want to lock me in a nursing home and sell my house? Mom, David shouted, finally losing his composure. Stop this. You're sick. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, I replied, standing up. My moment had come. I know you've been drugging me for weeks. I know you planned all this to have me declared incompetent. And I know Dr. Hillman is a fraud you paid to sign a false diagnosis. Arthur looked at me with shock but also with dawning recognition. My husband was a smart man. The pieces were falling into place. Maggie, Arthur said slowly, are you sure about this? Completely sure. David turned to his father. Dad, can't you see what's happening? Mom is having persecutory delusions. Dr. Hillman told us this was common in advanced dementia. But Lily, my brave granddaughter, chose that moment to speak. She's not delusional, she said in a small but firm voice. I heard them. We all turned to the girl. David and Claire turned pale. What did you hear, sweetheart? I asked gently. I heard them talking in the kitchen last week, Lily said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mom told Dad it was time to give Grandma more medicine to make her more confused. The silence that followed was absolute. David and Claire stared at their daughter in horror, not because she had uncovered their plan, but because she had betrayed them. Lily, you're confused, Claire said, her voice shaking. You misunderstood. I understood, Lily insisted more forcefully. You said the doctor would give you papers to take Grandma's house. You said Grandma would be better off in a place where she couldn't bother you anymore. Arthur stood up slowly, his face transforming from confusion to fury. David, what in God's name is going on here? Dad, Lily is a child. She doesn't understand. Enough, Arthur roared, and I had never seen him so angry. Have you been drugging your mother? David opened and closed his mouth, speechless. Claire took charge. Arthur, she's very sick. Sometimes we have to give her medication to calm her down, for her own good. Medication? What kind of medication? Just something mild to help with her anxiety. Without a prescription, I added. Without my consent. Without Arthur's knowledge. Because we knew you wouldn't understand. Claire screamed, finally losing control. You two are too stubborn to see that Margaret needs help. And you decided to help her by drugging her. Arthur was trembling with rage. It was the only way. David yelled, now joining in. You never would have listened to us. Mom never would have agreed to move on her own. There it was, the confession I needed. So you admit you've been drugging me, I said calmly. David realized too late what he'd said. I didn't mean, you said exactly what you meant, I continued. You've been poisoning me to make me seem senile. You bribed a corrupt doctor to diagnose me with dementia. All to steal my house. It's not stealing. Claire screamed. It's your inheritance. We'd get it anyway. After I'm dead, I said coldly. But you didn't want to wait that long. Arthur walked over to David, and for a moment I thought he might strike our son. Get out of my house, Arthur said in a voice I'd never heard. Get out now and never come back. Dad, you have to understand, get out. Arthur roared. Before I call the police. The police? Claire laughed nervously. For what? We haven't done anything illegal. I took out my phone and showed the screen where the recording app was running. Administering a controlled substance without consent. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Elder abuse, I listed calmly. All recorded. All admitted by you. The color drained from David and Claire's faces as they understood the magnitude of their mistake. I also have the lab analysis of the lorazepam you put in my water, I continued. And the recording of your consultation with Dr. Hillman, where you discussed getting legal control of my assets. David collapsed into a chair, finally understanding they had lost. Mom, you just wanted to rob me, I finished. And you were willing to destroy my mind to do it. Claire was still trying to salvage the situation. Margaret, if you report us, what will happen to Lily? Do you want your granddaughter to grow up without parents? It was her last attempt at manipulation, using Lily as a shield. But my brave granddaughter came to my side and took my hand. Grandma, she said firmly, do what you have to do. I love you, but what they did is wrong. In that moment, I knew I had helped raise this girl right, despite her parents. Arthur, I said calmly, call the police. Wait. David yelled, jumping to his feet. We can fix this. We can leave. Never come back. Forget all this. The same way you were going to make me forget everything. I asked. By drugging me until I didn't remember my own name. Mom, please. I am not your mother, I said with a coldness that surprised me. My son died the day he decided to poison his own mother. Arthur was already dialing 911. David and Claire looked at each other in desperation, knowing there was no escape. 911, what's your emergency? I heard the operator's voice. I need to report an attempted poisoning and elder fraud, Arthur said in a firm voice. It was the moment I had been waiting for. Justice had finally arrived. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Family isn't always blood, it's the people who would never poison your drink. The police arrived in minutes that felt like hours. During that time, David and Claire alternated between desperate pleas and threats. Lily stayed by my side, clinging to my hand. Grandma, she whispered as we waited, are they going to arrest my parents? Probably, my love, I answered honestly. What they did is very serious. Where will I live? It was the question I'd been dreading. I don't know yet, but I promise you we will make sure you're safe and have everything you need. The officers who arrived were professional. Detective Maria Rodriguez, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, took my statement while her partner interviewed Arthur separately. Mrs. Herrera, Detective Rodriguez said, I understand you have evidence you were being systematically poisoned. I showed her everything, the lab report, the recordings, the screenshots about Dr. Hillman, and Lily's testimony. The detective reviewed every piece carefully. This is very thorough, she commented. Did you work with an attorney to gather all this? Yes, with Eleanor Vance. She helped me understand what evidence I needed. Smart. Most victims of elder abuse don't have the presence of mind to document so meticulously. Meanwhile, I could hear David and Claire's raised voices from the living room as they spoke with another officer. They were denying everything, of course, insisting I was having paranoid delusions caused by dementia. Will you be interviewing Dr. Hillman? I asked. Absolutely. If your allegations are true, he will also face charges for medical fraud and conspiracy. Lily was interviewed by a social worker who specialized in minors. The girl repeated her testimony with a clarity and bravery that filled me with pride. When the interviews concluded, Detective Rodriguez returned. David Herrera and Claire Herrera, she announced formally, you are under arrest for poisoning without consent, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. The handcuffs clicked shut on David's wrists. Claire began to cry, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. This is ridiculous. David yelled as they led him out. My mother is sick. This is all a delusion. David, I said calmly, save your energy. You're going to need it for your defense. It was the last time I spoke to him as my son. After they were taken away, the social worker sat with Arthur, Lily, and me to discuss her situation. Normally in cases like this, explained the social worker, a compassionate woman named Sarah Jenkins, the minor would be temporarily placed with family services while permanent custody is determined. Could she stay with us? Arthur asked immediately. It's possible, but we'd need to conduct a full home study and evaluate your ability to care for a minor, considering your age and the recent trauma. We are perfectly capable of caring for Lily, I interrupted firmly. And she has been through enough. Separating her from us now would be cruel. I understand your concern, but I also have to consider what's best for Lily long term. What do you mean by that? Arthur was growing tense. Well, you are 70 and 74, respectively. Raising an 8-year-old is a significant responsibility. Ms. Jenkins, I said in my firmest voice, my granddaughter just saved my life by risking her own. She showed more courage and morality than adults 3 times her age. I will not allow the system to punish her for doing the right thing. Lily squeezed my hand. I want to stay with Grandma and Grandpa. What you want is important, Lily, Sarah replied, but I also have to ensure you're in the best possible environment. It was Arthur who resolved it. Ms. Jenkins, I respect your work, and I understand you have to protect Lily, but please let us prove we're the best option. Let her stay with us temporarily while you conduct your evaluation. Sarah considered this. I can arrange temporary custody for 30 days while I complete my assessment, but I'll need to make weekly visits, and Lily will need to continue therapy to process everything. Of course, I agreed immediately. We'll do whatever is necessary. After Sarah left, the 3 of us sat in the living room, processing everything. The house felt different, cleansed. Grandma, Lily said after a long silence, are you sad about what happened to my parents? It was a complex question that deserved honesty. I'm sad for the son I thought I had, I replied carefully. I'm sad because David made choices that broke our family. But I am not sad that we are safe now. I destroyed the family by telling you their secret. My heart broke. This child was blaming herself for her parents' evil. Lily, look at me, I said, taking her face in my hands. You didn't destroy anything. You saved everything. You were the only brave person in this whole situation. But now my parents are going to jail. Your parents are going to jail because they made terrible choices. Because they chose to hurt people they claimed to love for money. That is not your fault, Arthur joined in. Lily, sometimes adults do very wrong things. When that happens, there are consequences. But you did exactly the right thing. That night, after Lily fell asleep in the room we'd made hers, Arthur and I sat on our bed talking. Maggie, Arthur said, when David told me you were losing your memory for a moment, I doubted. I know, I replied, taking his hand. That was part of their plan, to make even you doubt me. I hate myself for that. Don't. They were very convincing, and you know me better than anyone. That's why you trusted me in the end. How did you know to gather evidence? Because I knew no one would believe an old woman's word alone. An elder accusing her son of poisoning her sounds like senile paranoia, doesn't it? Arthur nodded sadly. What happens now? Now we rebuild. We heal. And we make sure Lily grows up knowing you always do the right thing, no matter how hard it is. And David? It was the hardest question. David made his choice. Now he lives with the consequences. That night, I slept better than I had in months. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid of the next day. Justice had been served. But more importantly, my real family, the one that truly loved me, was safe. 6 months later, I sat in my garden watching Lily play with the puppy Arthur had gotten her for her 9th birthday. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the flowers we'd planted together that spring. For the first time in a long time, I felt a deep, true peace. The trial had concluded 3 weeks earlier. David was sentenced to 18 months for poisoning and conspiracy. Claire received a year. Dr. Hillman lost his medical license and was fined heavily. It wasn't enough, Eleanor Vance had said after the sentencing. They deserved more time. It was enough, I had replied. The punishment wasn't the point. Ensuring they can never hurt me or anyone else again is. Lily had stayed with us through it all. Sarah Jenkins's evaluation had been thorough but fair, and she ultimately determined we were the best home for my granddaughter. The temporary custody became permanent last month. Grandma! Lily shouted from the yard. Look what Daisy learned. The golden retriever puppy had mastered sit, and Lily beamed with pride. These months had transformed her from a frightened, guilt-ridden child into a joyful, confident girl. Wonderful, sweetheart. I called back. Come on, let's get dinner ready. Arthur arrived home from his part-time job at the local garden center shortly after. At 74, he'd decided to work a few days a week. To stay active, he claimed, but I knew it was to ensure we had enough for Lily. How was school? He asked Lily as he washed up. I got an A on my history test, she announced proudly. And my teacher said my essay was the best in class. What was your essay about? I asked, though I suspected. About you, Grandma. I wrote about how you're the bravest person I know. My heart swelled. This extraordinary child had turned the most painful betrayal of my life into something beautiful. During dinner, Lily told us about her friends, the school play, the science project she wanted to do. Her life was filled with the normal, wonderful things every 9-year-old should have. Grandma, she said as we washed dishes, do you ever miss Dad? She asked this sometimes, and I always gave her the most honest answer I could. I miss the David who existed when he was your age, I said. I miss the boy who played in this yard and helped me in this kitchen. But that David disappeared a long time ago. Do you think he'll ever come back? I don't know, my love. People can change, but they have to want to, and they have to accept the consequences of their actions. David had written me letters from prison. I had sent them back unopened. I wasn't ready for excuses. Maybe someday, but not now. Claire had tried to contact me through lawyers, asking for visits with Lily. All requests were denied by the judge. The woman willing to drug an elder to steal her house was not someone to be trusted near a child. That night, Arthur and I sat on the porch with our tea, as we had for decades. Do you ever regret fighting back? Arthur asked. Never, I replied without hesitation. If I hadn't, I'd be in a facility right now, drugged and confused, while they lived in our house, and Lily would be learning that it's okay to hurt family for money. You were so brave, Maggie. I wasn't brave, I reflected. I was terrified. But sometimes doing the right thing isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what must be done despite the fear. Arthur took my hand, the same hand he'd held 45 years ago. What do you think the future holds for us? I looked toward Lily's window, where her nightlight cast soft shapes. I think we're going to watch an extraordinary girl grow up. We're going to teach her that real family isn't just blood, it's who loves you unconditionally. We're going to make sure she knows that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. And us. We're going to grow old together in the home we built, surrounded by real love. We're going to see Lily graduate, go to college, maybe start a family of her own someday. We're going to be the grandparents she deserves. Sounds perfect. It won't be perfect, I admitted. Raising a child at our age won't be easy. There will be hard days when Lily misses her parents. When she asks questions we don't know how to answer. But it will be real. It will be honest. It will be built on true love. That night, before sleeping, I wrote in my journal the words that summed up everything I'd learned. Today marks 6 months since I discovered my son was willing to destroy my mind to steal my home. 6 months since I learned that family isn't always blood, and that true love sometimes requires painful decisions. My granddaughter Lily taught me that courage doesn't come from size or age, but from the heart. She taught me that doing the right thing is more important than keeping a false peace. She taught me that sometimes saving someone requires risking everything. David made his choice. He chose money over love, greed over family, betrayal over honesty. He lives with the consequences. I made my choice too. I chose to fight for my dignity, for my home, for my future. I chose to protect an innocent child who had the courage to protect me first. I regret nothing. Tomorrow, I will wake in my own bed, in my own house, with my mind clear and my heart at peace. I will have breakfast with Arthur and Lily. I will help with homework. I will work in the garden. I will live a simple, honest life, surrounded by true love. At 70 years old, I learned it's never too late to defend yourself. It's never too late to demand respect. It's never too late to choose dignity over comfort. And most importantly, it's never too late to begin again. I closed the journal and listened to the sounds of my home, Arthur's steady breathing, Lily's soft snores, the living room clock marking the hours. These were the sounds of a real family, of a home built on true love and mutual respect. For the first time in months, I fell asleep completely at peace, knowing I had won the most important battle of my life, the battle for my own dignity. And in winning, I had saved not only my future, but the future of my extraordinary granddaughter. Justice had arrived, and with it, true happiness. If this story of courage and betrayal resonated with you, please support our channel by giving this video a like and subscribing to Winds of Thought for more powerful tales.